installed a hidden recorder in our bedroom and overheard me mocking him with my affair. Hey Reddit, using a throwaway account here because my ex-friends follow my main. I'm already being mocked by them. I can only imagine how much mocking they'll do if they find this post. I'm in a bit of a dilemma now as I've made a massive mistake that I now regret. I cheated on my husband and well, I got kicked out. How, why, when, and with whom, you might be wondering. Let me give you some backstory. My name is Lisa and I am a 32-year-old woman married to Timothy, also 32. We met in college and from the moment I laid eyes on him, I knew he would secure my future. You see, my goal since high school has always been security. I grew up poor, like surviving on food stamps kind of poor. I wanted a life without financial struggles, to be a trophy wife with a wealthy partner who could support my lifestyle. This desire also came from my parents, who pushed me to marry rich to lift our family out of poverty. Before Timothy, I dated with financial stability in mind, and I always looked for partners who could provide for me and my family. Then I met Timothy. I wasn't very attracted to him, but I was impressed by his intelligence and promising future. He came from a wealthy family and everyone expected him to succeed in life, much like Jeff Bezos or Mark Zuckerberg. We dated for years until finally marrying 2 years ago. It took us that long to get married because Timothy was a bit hesitant about it, but after enough pushing, he finally proposed. And just like any other devious and devilish in-laws from hell, his parents never liked me and they tried all kinds of shit. From trying to control our wedding decisions until we had to sit them down and threaten to uninvite them if they didn't stop, to excluding me from property ownership by buying a house for us as a wedding gift and putting only Timothy's name on the deed, and then pressuring us into a prenup by threatening to cut Timothy out of the will. I signed it quickly because I hoped to gain their favor and maybe a place in their will. Timothy's job pays well, though he didn't become the mega success I hoped for. But it provided the financial security I sought, which made the prenup a minor concern in exchange for a comfortable life. Our life was pretty cushy thanks to Timothy's family wealth and his sweet gestures. He was very romantic, but was also very boring. He made sure I didn't have to work, so I had all the time for my hobbies. We had our cute date nights now and then, but in bed it was just okay. But here's the thing, I was bored out of my mind. The whole fancy neighborhood vibe, it was not my scene at all. I hated how fake it was. I also hated the fact that once a week we had to go over to his parents' house for dinner because, his parents didn't like me, and I wasn't banking on a big inheritance from them, so I didn't see any reason for me to go over there. Sure, Timothy was a good guy and I liked the security he brought, but love? Nah, that was missing. I didn't love Timothy, I loved the security. Our posh neighborhood was full of fake people, especially the ladies from my book club. I only joined to fit in, not because I cared about reading. And let me tell you, those ladies were more about gossip than books. The big house, the pool, the gym, all nice, but they didn't fill the void of excitement I craved. Every day felt like Groundhog Day, just a never-ending loop of the same old stuff. I couldn't shake the feeling of emptiness. It was like there was a big hole in my life that needed filling. The routines were killing me. The same old social events, the forced smiles, and the fake conversations. It was all so suffocating. I needed something to shake things up, to add some spice to my existence. I craved excitement, something to get my heart racing again. But in our fancy world, everything was too predictable, too safe, too boring. Our date nights were so fake it could have been scripted, and even our luxurious lifestyle started to lose its appeal. I'd find myself daydreaming about wild adventures, about breaking free from the monotony. But every time I tried to inject some fun, it was met with disapproval or raised eyebrows from Timothy or our snobby friends. Living in this fancy bubble felt like being trapped in a beautiful prison. Everything looked perfect on the outside, but inside it was all hollow. I knew I needed a change, something to jolt me out of this boring routine and make me feel alive again. Timothy was a good guy, no doubt about it. He was loving, caring, and always there when I needed him. But if I'm being real, he could be a bit too much at times, like he was stuck in this bubble of predictability, always playing it safe, never stepping out of line. I tried dropping hints, suggesting we try new things, but he just wasn't having it. He wanted everything to be all lovey-dovey, romantic gestures and cozy nights. And don't get me wrong, that's nice and all, but it gets old real fast, you feel me? I wanted some excitement, some adventure. I wanted to feel alive, not like I was stuck in some rom-com. To Eric and cut ties with him after our movie date. At first, after I was shocked and I left hurriedly, but strangely, I didn't feel immediate regret. Eric made me feel alive in a way that was missing from my marriage. When I got back home, I went through the usual motions, cooking dinner, chatting with my husband. He surprised me with flowers, a kind gesture that also stirred up mixed feelings about what had happened earlier. I tried to go to bed, but I couldn't sleep. While I don't regret being with Eric, I couldn't say I regretted being with Eric, but I was also torn about what it meant for my marriage. I knew that I had messed up, but I also knew that it wasn't really my fault, as my husband had indirectly pushed me to cheat. After that day with Eric, I tried to keep my distance for a bit, thinking it might help me get a grip on things. But let's be real here. It was tough. I missed talking to him like crazy, and going back to my usual routine felt empty without our chats. It didn't even take 4 days before I caved in and started texting him again, saying sorry and all that jazz. We patched things up, and that's when our affair really kicked into gear. I know it's all kinds of messed up, but I couldn't shake the addiction I had for him. My affair with Eric became a routine, almost like clockwork. I started to distance myself from my husband. With the way I was acting, we were now more like roommates than a married couple. All my energy and attention were directed towards Eric, and that left little room for anything else. As our affair progressed, we became more daring and bolder, and I loved it. It was risky, but the rush it gave me made it difficult to pull away. During this period, my husband was really trying to make things right between us, going out of his way to show me love and attention. He didn't quite get why I was distant, but he was giving it his all. Despite his efforts, I was already too caught up in my affair with Eric. I couldn't shake the excitement and attraction I felt for him, no matter how guilty I felt about it. It was like living a double life, playing the role of a devoted wife during the day while secretly having an affair. I started getting mad at my husband, thinking he was too clueless to notice how much I was cheating on him. It made me doubt our marriage even more, feeling like he couldn't meet my needs. Then things changed when Eric ran into money problems and got booted from his place. I wanted to help, but I'd already done a lot, and I didn't want him leaning on me entirely for cash. When he asked, I had to say no, and that I was worried Timothy would get suspicious. Now that Eric was staying at his parents' place, it made our meetings much trickier, as I couldn't go over to his parents' house. I was desperate to keep our connection, so I figured out a way to see him by bringing him to my house when Timothy was out. Eric's presence in our house became somewhat routine. He enjoyed hanging out in Timothy's man cave, playing video games or watching TV. Sometimes he'd even make use of our gym equipment. He'd spend hours there, only leaving about an hour before Timothy was due to come home. We would even have sex in our room right in our bed. Then things took a weird turn when Eric started acting all jealous and irritated with Timothy. It was kind of dumb because we'd been fooling around for months without any drama, and suddenly Eric was all worked up about Timothy. He'd nitpick and make fun of Timothy, and I couldn't help but laugh along because honestly, some of it was true. On Eric's last visit before everything went haywire, we hung out like usual, watched a movie, cooked lunch, and then ended up in bed. Afterward, we were just lying there chatting, and out of nowhere, Eric goes on this rant mocking Timothy. He's joking about how clueless Timothy is and making fun of his habits. I joined in because I found it hilarious, and it was also a little true. We even joked about Timothy's parents, who, like I think I've mentioned before, I never really got along with. And Eric also brought up Timothy's will, which I'd never bothered with because I haven't ever read nor seen it. It was all fun and games. Then Eric left a couple of hours before Timothy was due home from work. That day was the calm before the storm, little did I know. When Timothy got home, I could practically feel the anger radiating off him, and it was hard to ignore. He's usually good at keeping his emotions in check, but that day it was like he couldn't contain his frustration. It bothered me enough that I finally asked him what was going on. He shrugged it off, saying it was just work stuff. I wanted to believe him, so I let it go. But the atmosphere remained icy. Timothy kept his distance. He barely spoke to me, and he didn't even touch the meal I had prepared. It was strange because he usually loved my cooking. His distant behavior left me feeling very uneasy and guilty, like I was somehow to blame for his mood. It was clear something was off, and I remember that I couldn't shake the feeling that things were about to take a turn for the worse. I just wish I had listened to my instincts. The next day, Timothy said he wasn't going to work. I was surprised and a bit let down because it meant I wouldn't see Eric. But at the same time, I felt a bit relieved. The whole affair with Eric had been dragging on for months, and I was getting tired of it. That whole day was strange, to be honest. I guess Timothy was still struggling with how to deal with the whole thing, because then he told me to start packing. No warning, no foretelling, just told me to start packing. Timothy's demand for me to pack up literally came out of nowhere, and I didn't understand what was going on. I laughed because at first I thought it was a joke, but he was dead serious. He cut through the pretense and accused me outright of cheating on him. I was taken aback, of course, and tried to deny it until Timothy played a recording on his phone. A recording of Eric and me mocking him in our bedroom that made everything painfully clear. I had been caught red-handed, and there was no way to talk my way out of it. Timothy was furious, and rightly so. He caught me red-handed thanks to the recorder he has placed into our room. He was now angry. He said he couldn't understand why I'd grown so distant, but now he did. I tried to explain, to plead, but he wasn't having any of it. Timothy then gave me an ultimatum, to pack my things in minutes. He told me he'd already shared the damning recording with everyone we knew, and that my reputation was stained beyond repair. He said he had already called my parents on his way home yesterday and told them to come pick me up today. He said that I shouldn't worry, and that soon my phone would start blowing up with calls. I started crying and begging Timothy to reconsider, to listen to reason. But his mind was made up. He didn't let me take anything he'd given me, not the jewelry, not even the car. I had taken everything for granted, and now I had lost it. After the mess with Timothy, my parents were pissed. They didn't hold back, saying I'd screwed everything up big time. They called me every name in the book and made it clear I'd messed up my chance at financial security. They insisted I find a damn good lawyer to fight my case in the divorce. They don't know about the cheating clause in the prenup, and I still haven't told them. The ride home with them was hell. They didn't hold back on disappointment. They made sure I knew exactly how badly I messed up. Even back at their place, their lectures still continued. That was just last week. Now I'm stuck at my parents' place, dealing with their constant anger and blame. Timothy has cut them off financially since the drama, and they were totally financially dependent on him, so that's why they're really pissed at me for screwing up. I tried reaching out to Eric, hoping for some support or at least a sympathetic ear, but he's ghosted me. It's like he heard about the chaos from someone else and decided to bail, and even blocked me in the process. To add insult to injury, my phone's blowing up with messages from people I know, and some I don't, ripping into me for being ungrateful. I'm drained and feeling pretty damn low. I want to patch things up with Timothy, but he's ignoring all my texts. In fact, the only text he has sent was one telling me that we were going to get a divorce and that I was going to get served. I'm lost and desperate for any kind of help or advice on Reddit. Update. Hey everyone, I debated whether to update because the comments and messages have been brutal. It's been months, and I'm still facing blame and insults from all sides. My husband and I did get a divorce, as I mentioned before. The fallout has been non-stop criticism from ex-friends, acquaintances, and strangers. Eric has still not messaged since or even called, and neither did he unblock me. It's sad and funny how he claimed to love me, and yet he cut me off so quick so he wouldn't go down with me. The divorce process was a slap in the face. The court proceedings were quick due to the cheating clause in our prenup. My parents, who were clueless about this clause, were furious when we ended up with nothing. They had to foot the legal bills, which left them broke and angrier at me, especially since, like I've mentioned before, they depended on my ex-husband financially. It's been a huge wake-up call watching how my folks are dealing with this mess. They've never been big on working, and have always counted on Timothy's money since I married him. Now that he's cut them off, they're in a tough spot, yet they won't budge from their lazy habits. All they do all day is hang around the house and point fingers at me for their problems. But they won't lift a finger to fix things. I've tried to push them to find work, to take some responsibility, but it's like talking to a wall. Their dependence on others has finally caught up, and it's hard not to feel frustrated, especially when they're blaming me without doing anything to help themselves. Now I'm hustling to find a job to get out of my parents' place. It's tough with my pretty empty resume, but I'm determined to regain my independence and escape the toxicity. It's been a very rough ride emotionally, and I'm trying to stay hopeful for better days. I've decided not to update again and might even delete this account. The negativity here has taken a toll, and I need to focus on moving forward.